Thank you for the introduction. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that preterm infants grow like healthy fetuses in utero. Growth rates of preterm infants are 2 to 3 times higher than growth rates of at term age. Breast milk is the ideal nutrition for term infants. However, to fulfill the increased macronutrient needs of preterm infants, breast milk must be fortified. Current approaches is standard fortification. Standard fortification adds a standard amount of a fortifier to breast milk. However, the composition of the standard fortifier is different from the product which we are using. Recent studies have found that at discharge, poor growth of preterm infants is observed in about 50% of preterm infants at discharge. Higher risk of poor neurodevelopment, outcome, and chronic diseases. Standard fortification assumes that there is a standard composition of breast milk. However, the breast milk content varies inter and individually. This variation matters less for term infants as growth rates are lower and babies are self-regulated. Intake is determined by hunger and not by the neonatal team. What you see here on this slide is an overview of the concentration of protein in different batches of mother's own milk. Each box plot represents the concentration of protein in one mother. Here you see 103 box plots. And then if standard fortification is added to breast milk, then we just increase the protein concentration to a higher level, which is shown here, box plots in red. However, most of the breast milk samples did not achieve with standard fortification the recommendations by the SBGN. And it becomes even more complicated. If you look into the relationship between protein and lactose, fat and protein, lactose and fat, then we see that a high concentration of protein is not related to a high concentration of fat, and the low protein concentration is also not related to a low fat concentration. What we can do in this case? One possibility would be target fortification, which adds 2 additional steps to standard fortification. In target fortification, we measure the concentration of the breast milk, and then we add a standard fortifier, and on top, in addition, we add extra amount of protein, fat, and carbohydrate as needed in order to come up with the recommended intake. I would like to walk you through the process. What you see here, the upper line represents the recommended intakes for protein, for fat and carbohydrate. The lower bars represent the concentration in breast milk. If now standard fortification or routine fortification is added, then the concentration is increased to a certain level. For example, here carbohydrates even exceed the recommendation, whereas for fat and protein it's still below the recommendation with standard fortification. What target fortification now is doing, it adds the additional amount of macronutrients, but only for those samples where we have a deficient amount. Here, for example, protein. This means target fortification is not a super fortification. It only corrects deficient samples of breast milk in order to increase the macronutrient concentration to the recommendations. These are data from our recent RCT. What you see here these are the short-term outcomes measured at 36 weeks of gestation for weight, growth velocity, length, and head circumference. And what we see here, we have an improvement in weight, length, head circumference, showing positive effect due to target fortification. Also, we found better feeding intolerance in infants on target fortification. There was a trend towards lower neonatal morbidities, and there were no side effects such as metabolic adverse events. The objective of the current study is to investigate the impact of target fortification on neurodevelopmental outcome at 18 months of age. This was a randomized controlled trial. double-blind studies, single-center studies. We had 3 weeks of intervention with target fortification. Infants were randomized. Primary outcome parameters were weight at 36 weeks, growth velocity, nutrition efficacy, and anthropometric measurement, as well body composition. And this study focused on the neurodevelopmental outcome at 18 months of age. The gestational age in this study was infants less than 30 weeks. Infants were included when tolerating 100 milliliters per kilo per day. Breast milk and fortified breast milk had to be provided for at least 75% of all entry feedings. Infants were excluded with congenital anomalies, gastrointestinal malformation, renal diseases, sepsis, or NEC. Here you see an overview about the protein concentration measured in breast milk. Here on the left, in the control group, there we see a wide variation of the protein content. It goes here from 3 to 4 gram per kilogram per day, but calculated for 150 milliliter of breast milk per day. A similar distribution or macronutrient content was found in the group of target fortification. When this milk was then further target fortified, then we achieved the recommended intake according to the protein content. A similar observation we have for the caloric intake. Target fortification improved the caloric intake of breast milk to the suggested amounts. Here you see the baseline characteristics measured at 18 months of age. There is no statistical difference in terms of age when the Bailey assessment was done, weight, length, and head circumference. And this slide shows you an overview of the neurodevelopmental outcome. We see that all parameters, cognitive, language, and motor, Bailey composite scores showed an improvement or higher scores in the control group. However, this finding was not statistically significant. If we look now in the distribution of the neurodevelopment in the standard fortified group, here shown on the left side, then we see that there is a trend towards improved or higher neurodevelopmental outcome in the target fortification group, which is by about a score point of 4. If we now present the data in terms of in a histogram, then we see also that all parameters were improving in the target fortification group. Again, we did not find a statistical significance. Even the odds ratio was 3.1 for having a cognitive score less than 85. If we're using this data and plug it in a sample size calculation, then we find that at least 180 to 240 infants would be needed in order to find a statistically significant finding using this result. If we then look more closely into infants which have a breast milk with high and low protein content, then we also see that target fortification in all groups improved the neurodevelopmental outcome parameters, and the greatest differences we found between the low protein group control group with standard fortification compared with higher values in the high protein group in the intervention group, and the findings are clinically relevant. However, it did not reach statistical significance because of the high variation. Now I would like to present you the comparison between short and long-term outcomes. On the left side you see the standard fortification. L stands for low protein, H for high protein. We see the delta here due to the different protein concentration. Then we see on the right side the change in weight for the target fortification group. There we see that there is an effect due to target fortification, and we also find between the low and the high protein group for the target fortification that there is some difference in terms of the weight, which can be explained maybe due to the different protein concentration. If we now look into neurodevelopmental outcome, then we see that there is a difference in the group of standard fortification low versus high protein, and also in the target fortification group low versus high protein, we see an improvement due to target fortification, comparing standard with target fortification. However, what is different, the delta for the target fortification group with low protein, which is maybe an effect of the time after discharge. In summary, though no statistical significance, we speculate that improved nutrient supply by target fortification has a positive impact on neurodevelopmental outcomes. The effect size is in the order of magnitude of previously reported studies on nutritional intake and IQ. The impact of target fortification on long-term outcomes seems to be different from short-term outcomes. This may have to do with protein content of breast milk fed after ending fortification. It is speculated that analysis of breast milk after discharge may be warranted and prolonged supplementation may be beneficial. A multi-center RCT of target fortification should be initiated to increase the statistical power to test the effect on short-term and long-term outcomes. Thank you so much.